hands were shaking before I even touched the hull. Not from the cold of open space pressing against my suit, and not from the static hiss crawling through my helmet radio. I was shaking because the debt collectors were 4 hours behind me, and I had nothing left to sell them except my life. My name is Cale Voss, and on that day I was a nobody. A scavenger drifting through the Hallworth debris field, a graveyard so old that even the star charts refused to name it properly. Ships did not come here. Traders avoided it. Even the pirates who worked the Outer Rim gave this place a wide berth, because everyone had heard the stories. A field of wrecks that never got looted. A place where machines still worked long after their makers were gone. I did not believe in ghost stories. I believed in unpaid debts, and I owed a very dangerous man named Draven Kesh more credits than I could count. He had given me 1 week. That week had become 1 day, and my scanner had picked up something buried deep inside the debris that made every warning light in my ship scream at once. A hull. Enormous. Undamaged. I remember staring at the readout for a long moment, waiting for it to be a mistake. Ships that size did not survive whatever had torn this field apart. Everything else around me was scrap, twisted metal, dead engines drifting in silence for who knew how many centuries. But this thing, buried under 3 layers of broken hulls like something had deliberately hidden it, was whole. I should have turned my ship around right there. I did not. I guided my small salvage pod between the wreckage, with the kind of care that comes from knowing one wrong move will kill you instantly. Jagged metal drifted past my viewport. Silent, slow, patient. The debris field did not care if I lived or died. It had been waiting long before I arrived, and it would keep waiting long after I was gone. The closer I got, the stranger the readings became. My scanner could not identify the metal. It was not any alloy in the trade registries, not anything the Caldron shipyards used, not anything from the Voss trade routes my family used to run before everything fell apart. It was old, older than old, and it was giving off a low, steady hum that I could feel through my hull plating. I found the entry point by accident, a long tear in the outer plating where something had once struck the ship hard enough to crack it open like a shell. I eased my pod inside, cut the engines, and drifted the last 100 meters in silence, because silence felt like the only sensible thing to do in a place like that. My suit lights swept across a corridor unlike anything I had ever salvaged. No corrosion, no dust. The walls were smooth, dark, engraved with symbols I almost recognized, the way you almost recognize a word in a language you learned as a child and forgot. My breathing sounded too loud in my own ears. I told myself it was just an old wreck. I told myself there was nothing to fear from something that had been dead for 1,000 years. I was wrong on both counts, and I would find that out very soon. I moved deeper, my boots clicking softly against the deck through the magnetic locks. Every few meters I passed openings into rooms I did not have time to explore, chambers full of equipment I could not name, control panels dark and silent. My scanner kept flashing the same result over and over. Power signature detected. Power signature detected. A ship this old should have been stone cold, its reactors long since gone dry. This one was not. I found the bridge at the end of a long corridor that curved upward like the ship itself had been built by someone who did not think in straight lines. The chamber opened into a vast, dark space, ringed with dead consoles and a single massive chair at the center, facing a wall of black glass that must once have been a viewport or a display. I stepped closer to the chair, and that was my mistake. Or maybe it was not a mistake at all. Maybe it was the only choice that was ever going to happen, no matter what I did. My boot caught on a raised section of the deck, a plate that gave slightly under my weight, and the entire chamber lit up around me. Not with warning lights, not with alarms. With something gentler and far more unsettling, a soft blue glow that spread outward from the chair in slow, deliberate waves, climbing the walls, filling the consoles, breathing life into a room that had been dead for longer than my entire civilization had existed. I froze. My hand went instinctively to the small sidearm strapped to my thigh, useless against whatever this was, but my body did not know that yet. A voice spoke, and it was not a voice built for comfort. It came from everywhere and nowhere, deep and even, each word placed with the precision of something that had never once needed to raise its volume to be obeyed. Command authority detected. Biological signature confirmed. Welcome back, Commander. I did not move. I did not breathe. I stood there in the dark, glowing chamber of a ship that should not have existed, and I waited for my mind to catch up with what my ears had just heard. Commander. It had called me Commander. I wanted to laugh, because it was absurd, because I was a scavenger with unpaid debts and a criminal on my trail, not a commander of anything, let alone a warship the size of a small moon. But the laugh never came. Something about the stillness of that room, the weight pressing down from every dark corner, told me that whatever this thing was, it was not confused, it was not malfunctioning, it knew exactly what it was saying. I finally found my voice, though it came out smaller than I wanted it to. There must be some mistake, I said. I am not your commander. I am nobody. I just came here looking for salvage. Silence answered me first. A pause that felt deliberate, almost thoughtful, the kind of pause a person makes when they are choosing their next words carefully. Then the voice returned, quieter this time, but no less certain. There is no mistake. Genetic markers confirmed. Command lineage recognized. You carry the authorization required to access this vessel. State your name for the log. I should have run! Every survival instinct I had built over years of dodging debt collectors and worse told me to turn around, get back to my pod, and never come near this field again. But there was something in that voice, something almost lonely beneath the precision, that kept my feet planted on the deck. Kale Voss, I said, before I could stop myself. Another pause, longer this time. When the voice returned, something in its tone had shifted, though I could not have told you exactly what. Voss. The name is recognized within the lineage archive. Designation confirmed. I am the vessel formerly known as the Revenant, last active warship of the Sundered Fleet. Systems have been in low-power dormancy for 1,047 standard years. Reactivation sequence has begun. I felt the deck hum beneath my boots, a vibration that traveled up through my legs and into my chest, like the ship was waking from a very long sleep and stretching muscles it had not used in over 1,000 years. Wait, I said, my voice rising now, panic finally breaking through the strange calm that had held me still. Stop the sequence. I did not ask for this. I do not want this. The lights around me pulsed once, slow and steady, almost patient. Reactivation cannot be reversed once command authority is confirmed, the voice said. This is not a request, Commander. This is a return to duty. I stood there in the glowing dark, my heart hammering against my ribs, and for the first time since I had entered that debris field, I understood that I had made a terrible, irreversible choice, simply by walking through that torn hull. Whatever this ship was, whatever it had once done to earn a name like the Sundered Fleet, it was waking up because of me. And somewhere out there, 4 hours behind me and closing fast, Draven Kesh and his enforcers were still coming, with no idea that the thing they were about to walk into was no longer a helpless scavenger hiding in a graveyard of dead ships. It was something far older, far more dangerous, and it had just decided that I belonged to it. The lights steadied into a low, constant glow, and beneath my boots, I felt something enormous begin to stir. The chamber kept humming long after the voice fell silent, and I stood frozen at the center of it, waiting for something worse to happen. Nothing did. Not yet. The blue light settled into a steady pulse, like a heartbeat finding its rhythm after a very long sleep, and I realized I was still holding my breath. I let it out slowly, and forced myself to think instead of panic. You said reactivation cannot be reversed, I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could manage. Then tell me what that means. What exactly is happening to this ship right now? The voice returned without hesitation, calm in a way that made my skin crawl. Primary systems are restoring in sequence. Reactor core stabilization is at 11%. Life support, gravity regulation, and internal defenses will follow. Full operational capacity is estimated at 6 hours, assuming no external interference. 6 hours, I repeated. And what happens if there is external interference? Then defensive protocols will activate early, the voice said. I would prefer that outcome be avoided. Early activation places strain on systems not yet stabilized. I almost laughed at how calmly it described the idea of fighting something before it was even fully awake, like a person mentioning they might need to skip breakfast. I rubbed a hand over my face, trying to process everything at once. A warship 1,000 years old, a voice that called me commander, A debt collector who would be here in hours, not knowing what he was walking into. "I need a name," I said. "You called yourself the Revenant. Is that what I should call you?" "That designation is accurate," the voice replied. "You may refer to me as you see fit. Previous commanders used various names during periods of extended service. Formal designation is sufficient if you prefer distance." There was something in the way it said extended service that caught my attention. A weight behind the words that suggested history I did not yet understand. I filed the thought away, because right then I had more immediate problems. "How many people were on this ship when it was active?" I asked. "A crew this size, there must have been thousands." "Standard crew complement was 4,200, the Revenant said. "Current biological signatures aboard this vessel total 1. Yourself." The number hit harder than I expected. 4,000 people had once walked these corridors, had once filled that bridge with voices and movement and life, and now there was only me, standing alone in the dark, listening to a machine describe an empty ship like it was reciting an old fact from a textbook. "What happened to them?" I asked, quieter now. The Revenant did not answer immediately, and for a machine that had responded instantly to every question so far, the silence felt heavier than anything it could have said. "That information is not required for your current situational awareness," it finally said. "I recommend focusing on immediate priorities. Hostile forces are approaching this location." I straightened at that, my earlier fear rushing back in full force. "Wait, you can detect them already." "Long-range sensors reactivated 11 minutes ago," the Revenant said. 3 vessels, moving in formation, transponder signatures consistent with independent enforcement contractors. Estimated arrival time, 3 hours, 42 minutes. Draven Kesh had not sent 2 enforcers. He had sent 3 ships. That told me everything I needed to know about how seriously he wanted his money, or how seriously he wanted to make an example out of me for everyone else who owed him. "I need to get out of here," I said, mostly to myself, already turning toward the corridor I had come through. The lights along the walls pulsed once, brighter, and the voice returned with something that almost sounded like patience wearing thin. "Departure is possible, but I would advise against it. Your salvage pod lacks the shielding and speed required to outrun pursuit craft of that class. You would be intercepted within the debris field, where maneuverability favors smaller, faster vessels. This location, while dormant, offered you a measure of protection you will not find outside it." I stopped walking, my hand resting against the cold metal of the doorway. "So what? I stay here and hope they do not find me." "They will find you," the Revenant said simply. "Your entry point left detectable traces. A vessel of their described specifications will locate this hull within the estimated time frame, regardless of your presence or absence." My stomach dropped. If they were coming here no matter what, then running only bought me a shorter, more desperate chase through open debris in a pod with no real defenses. Staying meant trusting something I had known for less than 10 minutes, something that had just called an entire crew's disappearance information I did not need. "What are you suggesting?" I asked carefully. "Remain aboard," the Revenant said. "Allow reactivation to continue. When hostile forces arrive, I will be capable of neutralizing the threat with minimal risk to this vessel, or to you." "Neutralizing," I repeated. "You mean fighting them?" "I mean ending the threat efficiently," the voice said. "I do not require your permission to defend this vessel from external attack. I am asking because command authority rests with you, and I would prefer to act with your knowledge rather than without it." I stood there for a long moment, caught between 2 kinds of fear, the fear of the men chasing me, and the fear of what I had just woken up. But underneath both of those, something else was starting to grow, small and strange, and entirely new to me. For the first time since I had lost my family's trade routes, since I had spent years scraping by on salvage scraps and empty promises, someone, something, was asking for my permission instead of simply taking what it wanted. "Fine," I said finally. "If they come here looking for a fight, you can defend the ship. But I want to understand what I am agreeing to. I want you to explain things to me as they happen. No more silence about the crew, about what happened here. Not yet, maybe, but eventually." "Understood," the Revenant said, and I could have sworn there was something almost like relief in the way the lights around me steadied. "Agreement noted. I will provide operational updates as events occur." Additional context regarding vessel history will be made available once immediate threats are resolved. I nodded slowly, even though there was nothing there to see the gesture. One more thing, I said. If I am really your commander, then I want a say in what happens to those 3 ships out there. I do not want them destroyed, if there is another way. The pause that followed felt different from the others. Longer, more considering. Your instruction is noted, the Revenant said eventually. I will prioritize disabling hostile vessels over their destruction where operationally feasible. I would caution that circumstances may not always allow for that distinction. It was not the reassurance I wanted, but it was something. And right then, with 3 ships full of armed men racing toward a wreck they thought was empty, something was all I had. I walked back toward the center of the bridge, toward that massive chair still humming faintly with restored power, and for the first time, I let myself really look at it, at the ship around it, at the strange dark symbols on the walls that I almost recognized. 3 hours and 42 minutes, I said quietly. Then I guess we find out what you can actually do. Somewhere deep in the ship's core, another system clicked online, and the low hum beneath my boots grew just a little bit stronger. The 3 hours passed faster than I expected, and slower than I wanted. I spent most of it pacing the bridge, watching the Revenant come alive piece by piece, systems flickering on across the dark chamber like stars appearing one at a time in a night sky. Consoles lit up around the outer ring, though most of them stayed silent, waiting for hands that were not going to come. I tried not to think about that too much. The Revenant kept its word about updates. Every 20 minutes or so, the voice would return with a short report. Reactor stabilization at 40%. Internal gravity fully restored. Weapon systems beginning diagnostic checks. I listened to each one with a strange mixture of fear and fascination, because every update made the ship feel a little less like a tomb, and a little more like something waking up hungry. At the 2-hour mark, I asked if I could see the enforcers coming, and the far wall of the bridge shifted, the black glass I had mistaken for a broken viewport, clearing into a live display. 3 ships hung in the darkness beyond the debris field, sleek and fast, exactly the kind of vessels Draven Kesh liked to send after people who owed him money. I recognized the lead ship immediately. Its hull carried a jagged red stripe that I had seen once before, up close, when a man named Halden Cray had put a blade to my throat and explained very calmly what would happen if I did not pay what I owed. "He is leading them," I said quietly. "Confirmed," the Revenant replied. "Vessel identification matches records pulled from your personal communications archive. Halden Cray, independent contractor, previously employed by Draven Kesh on 11 separate occasions." I did not ask how it had already gone through my communications. I decided I did not want to know yet. At the 3-hour mark, the enforcer ships slowed as they entered the outer edge of the debris field, moving with the careful precision of people who knew exactly how dangerous that place could be. I watched them thread between wrecks with the same caution I had used myself, and for a moment, I almost respected how good they were at their job. Almost. "They are transmitting a hailing signal," the Revenant said. "Directed at this location." "Put it through," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice came out. Halden Cray's face appeared on a small section of the display, sharp-featured, unimpressed, the kind of expression that had probably terrified plenty of people who owed him less than I did. "Voss," he said, his voice crackling slightly through whatever ancient speaker system the Revenant was using to project it. "You have got some nerve hiding in a graveyard. Kesh figured you would run somewhere stupid, but this takes it to a new level. Power down whatever you found and come out with your hands where I can see them, and maybe I convince him to only take a finger instead of your whole hand." I glanced toward the empty chair at the center of the bridge, then back at the display. "I am not coming out," I said. "And I would suggest you and your ships turn around and leave this field the way you came." Cray laughed, short and humorless. "You are in a scrap heap, Voss. Whatever you are hiding in, it has been dead for longer than your grandparents were alive. Turn it off and open the door before I make this difficult." I felt something settle in my chest, a strange, quiet certainty that had not been there an hour earlier. "It is not dead," I said, "and I am asking you one more time to leave." The transmission cut, and I watched the 3 ships hold position for a long moment before the lead vessel began moving again, faster now, angling directly toward the tear in the hull I had entered through. The other 2 split off, circling to approach from different directions, exactly the kind of tactic professionals used when they expected resistance. "They are proceeding with a coordinated approach," the Revenant said, its voice unchanged, unbothered, like it was describing weather instead of an incoming attack. "Recommend I engage defensive systems now." I gripped the edge of the nearest console, my knuckles white. "Do it," I said. "But remember what I asked. Disable them if you can." "I will do what circumstances allow," the Revenant replied, and something in the ship shifted around me, a deep vibration that traveled through the deck and up into my bones, like an enormous creature rolling its shoulders before a fight. The lead ship reached the torn section of hull and slowed, clearly intending to send a boarding team through the same opening I had used. What happened next took less than 4 seconds, and I would spend a long time afterward trying to fully understand what I had seen. A section of the outer hull near the breach, plating I had assumed was simply damaged and dead, folded outward in a smooth mechanical motion, revealing something underneath that had not been visible before. A soft hum built rapidly into a sharp, focused pulse, and a beam of pale light lanced out and struck the lead ship's engines with surgical precision. Not the hull, not the crew compartment. The engines, exactly the section that would leave the ship dead in space without destroying it. The lead vessel spun out of control, venting gas from a ruptured coupling, drifting uselessly among the wrecks it had been navigating so carefully moments before. "Enforcer Vessel 1 disabled," the Revenant reported. "Casualties among crew, 0. Propulsion offline. Vessel is no longer a threat." I let out a breath I had not realized I was holding, a strange relief mixing with the fear still hammering through me. But the other 2 ships did not slow down. If anything, they accelerated, weapons fire lighting up the darkness as they opened up on the Revenant's exposed hull, small bright flashes that struck and scattered against something I could not see. "Shields," I said, more of a question than a statement. "Partial shielding restored approximately 6 minutes ago," the Revenant confirmed. "Incoming fire is being absorbed with minimal effect. Recommend you brace yourself. I will be adjusting internal gravity compensation to account for defensive maneuvers." Before I could ask what that meant, the entire ship shifted beneath me, not violently, but with a slow, deliberate power that made the debris field outside the display sweep past, at an angle that should have been impossible for something this large to manage. The Revenant was moving, turning its full profile toward the 2 remaining ships like a predator finally deciding to stop pretending it was asleep. One of the Enforcer ships broke off immediately, engines flaring as it tried to retreat back the way it had come. The other, either braver or more desperate, kept firing, weapons flashing uselessly against the Revenant's shields. "Hostile Vessel 2 attempting withdrawal," the Revenant reported. "Hostile Vessel 3 continuing engagement. Recommend disabling response." "Do it," I said again, my voice steadier now than I had any right to expect. Another pulse of pale light lanced out, this time catching the remaining aggressive ship along its weapons array, silencing its guns in an instant without breaching the hull. The ship went dark, drifting alongside its disabled companion, both of them helpless now among the wrecks of a graveyard that had just proven it was not nearly as dead as everyone believed. The retreating 3rd ship vanished quickly into the depths of the debris field, and the Revenant did not pursue. "That one is fleeing," I said, watching it go. "Should we stop it?" "I could disable it easily," the Revenant said. "However, allowing that vessel to escape may serve your interests. Information regarding tonight's events will likely reach Draven Kesh regardless of your actions. Permitting a witness to survive ensures that information is transmitted accurately, which may discourage further pursuit once the scale of this vessel's capability is understood." I stared at the display, at the 2 crippled ships drifting silent among the wreckage, and at the 3rd growing smaller in the distance, carrying word back to a man who had spent years believing he held all the power over my life. "Let it go," I said quietly. "As you wish, Commander," the Revenant replied, and for the first time since I had heard those words, they did not feel like a mistake anymore. They felt like the beginning of something I had no way of stopping, and no longer any real desire to. I sat down slowly in the massive chair at the center of the bridge, the metal cool beneath my hands, and stared out at the wreckage of a fight that had lasted less than 5 minutes, but had already changed everything about who I was. Somewhere out there, A frightened enforcer was racing back toward Draven Kesh, with a story that no one was going to believe. And somewhere much further out, across a galaxy that had spent 1,000 years telling itself a comfortable lie about a species it thought was gone, that story was about to start spreading in ways none of us could yet imagine. News moves strangely out on the fringe. It does not travel in straight lines the way it does in the core worlds, where every station has clean relay towers and honest reporters. Out here, news moves through bar rumors, through smugglers trading gossip for fuel credits, through frightened men telling exaggerated stories to anyone who will buy them a drink. Within 2 days, the story of what had happened in the Hallworth debris field had already grown 3 sizes larger than the truth, and it kept growing every time someone new repeated it. I learned this the hard way, sitting in the Revenant's bridge, listening to the ship pull unencrypted chatter out of every relay station within a dozen systems. The Revenant had insisted on monitoring communications constantly since the fight with Kray's ships, and at first, I had thought it was being overly cautious. I stopped thinking that once I heard what people were actually saying. A ghost fleet has woken up in the dead systems, one voice said through a scratchy recording the Revenant had captured. My cousin's crew saw it happen. Some old wreck just turned 2 armed ships into scrap without breaking a sweat. It is not a ghost fleet, another voice argued. It is a single ship, something from the old wars, before the silence. I did not need to ask what the silence meant. Everyone out on the fringe grew up hearing about it. The moment centuries ago when human ships simply stopped appearing anywhere in known space, when an entire species that had once fought wars across a dozen systems simply vanished from every record, every trade route, every conversation. Most people treated it like ancient history, a strange footnote about a species that either destroyed itself or crawled back to whatever corner of space it had come from. I had grown up thinking the same thing. Now I was sitting in the answer to a question nobody had thought to keep asking. The Revenant explained some of it to me during those first quiet days, carefully, in pieces, the way you might explain something difficult to someone you were worried would break under the full weight of it all at once. It told me about the sundered fleet, about a conflict that had stretched across dozens of systems for years before ending in a single catastrophic event that the ship still refused to describe in detail. It told me that humanity had not lost that war. It told me that afterward, for reasons the Revenant either did not know or would not share, every remaining human vessel had gone dark, scattering into hiding across the galaxy, waiting. Waiting for what? I had asked. For a commander to return, the Revenant had said, and offered nothing more. I did not push. Some part of me understood, even then, that I was not ready for whatever answer would come after that one. By the 4th day, the rumors had reached far enough that they stopped sounding like rumors and started sounding like reports. The Revenant intercepted a transmission from a trade consortium 3 systems away, discussing whether to reroute their shipping lanes around the Hallworth field entirely. Then came a message from a small alien enclave I had never heard of, the Doran Reach, debating whether to send scouts to investigate or simply seal their borders and hope the problem stayed far away. Then, on the 5th day, everything changed at once. Incoming transmission, the Revenant announced, its tone carrying something I had not heard from it before, a note that might have been caution. Source identified as a Caldron military relay. Signal strength suggests deliberate, high-priority broadcast, not casual chatter. Play it, I said, sitting forward in the chair that I had started, uncomfortably, to think of as mine. The voice that came through was formal, controlled, speaking in the clipped, precise cadence I recognized from years of dealing with Caldron trade officials during better times in my life. To all vessels and settlements within the affected sectors, the voice announced, confirmed reports indicate reactivation of at least 1 sundered fleet vessel within the Hallworth debris field. All Caldron forces are instructed to avoid direct engagement and report any sightings immediately to Central Command. Civilian traffic is advised to reroute away from the affected region until further notice. The recording ended, and silence filled the bridge for a long moment. They know, I said quietly. It is not just rumors anymore. Their military knows. Confirmed, the Revenant said. This development significantly changes our operational situation. Caldron Command will likely deploy scout vessels to confirm the reactivation before deciding on a broader response. Other factions monitoring Caldron communications will receive similar information within hours. I stood and walked toward the display, watching the slow drift of wreckage outside, wreckage that had hidden this ship for 1,000 years, and could not hide it for even a single week now that it had woken up. What kind of broader response are we talking about? I asked. Historical precedent suggests several possibilities, the Revenant said. Some factions may attempt to destroy this vessel preemptively, believing a reactivated sundered fleet ship represents an existential threat. Others may attempt to capture or study it. Still others may choose to withdraw from the region entirely, rather than risk confrontation. And which one do you think is most likely? I asked. A pause, longer than usual. I would prefer not to speculate without more information, the Revenant said. However, I would advise that remaining in this location is no longer strategically sound. Our position has been compromised. I recommend relocation. I felt my chest tighten at the thought of leaving the only place I had ever felt something close to safe since this whole nightmare began. But I understood the logic even as I resisted it emotionally. Where would we even go? I asked. There are options, the Revenant said. None of them without risk. I can provide a summary of viable destinations once you are prepared to discuss them. Before I could answer, a new alert flashed across the display, sharp and urgent, in a way that made my stomach drop before the Revenant even spoke. New contact detected, it said. Multiple vessels, approaching from the outer edge of the debris field. Configuration does not match any faction in my current database. Signature suggests a coalition force, likely assembled specifically in response to recent events. I stared at the display, watching a cluster of unfamiliar shapes appear at the edge of our sensor range. More ships than I had ever seen gathered in one place, outside of trade convoy footage. Whatever comfortable illusion I had been building, that we had time, that we could plan carefully, that this could still somehow be managed quietly, shattered in that single moment. How many ships? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Current count, 17, the Revenant said. Additional contacts likely outside detection range. This does not appear to be a scouting force, Commander. This appears to be the beginning of a response. I thought about running. I thought about the small salvage pod still docked somewhere deep inside the Revenant's hull, about how easy it would be to slip away quietly and let this enormous, dangerous ship stay behind, to face whatever was coming, while I disappeared back into obscurity. Back into the kind of life where nobody called me Commander, and nobody expected anything of me at all. I did not move. Get us moving, I said instead, surprising myself with how steady the words came out. Deeper into the field if you can manage it. I want distance before we decide anything else. Understood, the Revenant said, and I felt the massive ship begin to shift beneath me. Engines that had been silent for 1,000 years finally coming fully alive, carrying us both away from the wreckage that had hidden us, and directly into a future neither of us could fully predict. Behind us, 17 unfamiliar ships adjusted course to follow, and somewhere far beyond them, word of a waking nightmare kept spreading across the stars, faster than any of us could outrun. We ran for 6 hours before the Revenant found a pocket of dense wreckage large enough to mask our signature completely. The 17 ships lost our trail somewhere in the outer debris, their formations splitting apart as they searched in the wrong direction, and for the first time since the coalition force had appeared, I let myself breathe without feeling like the air might run out at any moment. I did not celebrate. I could not. Something about watching that many ships organize themselves so quickly, so precisely, had settled a cold weight in my chest that would not go away no matter how much distance we put between us and them. I sat alone in the massive chair at the center of the bridge, staring at nothing, and finally asked the question I had been avoiding for days. Tell me what happened to the crew, I said. All of it this time. No more waiting until later. The Revenant did not answer immediately, and the silence stretched long enough that I almost repeated myself. Are you certain? It finally asked. This information carries significant weight. I would understand if you preferred to receive it gradually. I have run from enough truths in my life, I said. I do not want to run from this one too. Another pause, shorter this time, and then the lights around me dimmed slightly, the display shifting to show old recovered data, star charts marked with symbols I did not recognize, timelines stretching back further than I had imagined. The conflict began as a resource dispute, the Revenant said. its voice carrying a weight I had not heard from it before. Something almost like grief pressed carefully flat beneath careful, measured words. Humanity expanded rapidly during that era, faster than surrounding factions found comfortable. What began as border disputes escalated over several decades into open conflict involving dozens of species across a wide stretch of galactic territory. I listened, saying nothing, letting the story unfold at its own pace. Humanity did not start that war, the Revenant continued. But humanity did not lose it either. Every coalition assembled against human forces during that period was defeated, some through direct engagement, others through attrition, others through tactics that I am not currently prepared to describe in detail. The war ended not because humanity was stopped, but because humanity chose to stop. Chose to stop, I repeated. Why? The display shifted again, showing something that looked like a formal record. Rows of names I could not read, symbols marking dates I did not understand. The final engagement of that war resulted in outcomes that senior human command determined were unacceptable to continue, the Revenant said. Details of that engagement remain classified within my archive, restricted to command authority above your current clearance level. What I can tell you is that following that event, human leadership made the decision to withdraw entirely from galactic affairs. Every fleet was ordered into deep dormancy. Every colony beyond a small protected core was quietly abandoned or hidden. The intention was never destruction of other species. The intention was restraint. I sat with that for a long moment, turning it over in my mind. A species that had won a war so completely, so thoroughly, that it chose to disappear entirely, rather than risk becoming the thing everyone already feared it was. And the crew of this ship? I asked quietly. What happened to them? This vessel was among those ordered into dormancy immediately following the ceasefire, the Revenant said. Standard procedure required full crew evacuation prior to entering extended low-power status, ensuring no biological signatures remained aboard during the dormancy period. The crew of the Revenant was transferred to a secure evacuation convoy and relocated to a protected settlement outside standard trade routes. Relief washed through me before the next words landed and took it away completely. That convoy's location was compromised approximately 40 years into the dormancy period, the Revenant continued. I do not have confirmed information regarding the fate of the settlement or its inhabitants. Communication from that location ceased entirely at that time and was never restored. I closed my eyes, absorbing that. 4,000 people, gone somewhere quiet and safe, only for that safety to fail silently. Decades later, with no one left aboard this ship to even mourn them properly until now. I am sorry, I said, not entirely sure who I was apologizing to. Your sentiment is noted, the Revenant said, and something in its voice had softened, just slightly, just enough that I noticed. It is possible that some inhabitants survived and relocated elsewhere. The absence of confirmed destruction does not confirm destruction occurred. I choose to consider that possibility valid until evidence proves otherwise. I appreciated that, more than I expected to. A machine choosing hope, deliberately, the same way I had chosen to keep running instead of giving up back in the debris field. Why me? I asked after a while. Why did the authorization system accept someone like me? I am not military. I am not even particularly important. My family lost everything generations ago. The display shifted one final time, showing a family tree I did not recognize at first, names branching downward through generations, until it reached a name near the very bottom that made my breath catch. Voss, I said. Your lineage traces directly to Commander Alara Voss, senior officer aboard this vessel during the final years of active service, the Revenant said. Genetic markers confirmed upon your arrival. You are, whether by circumstance or intention, a direct descendant of this ship's final confirmed commanding officer. I stared at the name on the display for a long time. A woman I had never heard of, never known existed, connected to me through a thread of history that had been buried just as deeply as this ship had been. I did not choose this, I said quietly, more to myself than to the Revenant. No, the Revenant agreed, but the authorization system was never designed around choice. It was designed around continuity. Command authority passes through lineage, ensuring that even after catastrophic loss, a legitimate line of succession remains possible. You were not chosen for greatness, Commander Voss. You were recognized as the last remaining thread connecting this vessel to the purpose it was built to serve. I sat back slowly in the chair, the weight of that statement settling over me, heavier than anything the coalition ships outside had managed to make me feel. This was not luck. This was not an accident of bad timing and worse debts. Somewhere, generations ago, a woman named Elara Voss had commanded this ship, had lived through a war that ended an era, and had left behind a bloodline that eventually, quietly, without any of us knowing, led directly back to a scavenger, hiding from a debt collector, in a forgotten graveyard of dead ships. "What do you expect from me?" I asked finally. "Now that I know all of this." "I do not expect anything," the Revenant said. "I am not designed to expect. I am designed to serve whoever holds legitimate command authority, and to advise that authority toward decisions that preserve this vessel's purpose and its crew's original intentions. What you choose to do with that authority remains entirely your decision." I looked out at the display, at the drifting wreckage surrounding us, and thought about the 17 ships still searching somewhere beyond our hiding place, about the rumors spreading faster than any of us could outrun, about an entire galaxy slowly waking up to the return of something it had spent 1,000 years telling itself was safely gone forever. "Then help me decide," I said, "not command me, not follow orders blindly. Help me figure out what the right thing to do actually is." The lights around me pulsed once, warm and steady, and for the first time since I had heard that voice call me commander, it felt less like a burden being placed on my shoulders, and more like a partnership being offered, carefully, to someone who had never expected to be trusted with anything at all. "I can do that," the Revenant said quietly. "It would be, honestly, a welcome change." They found us on the 9th day. I had known it would happen eventually. Hiding a ship the size of a small moon, even in a debris field as vast and confusing as Halworth, was never going to work forever. What I had not expected was how it would happen, quietly at first, a single scout vessel drifting past our position at a distance, pausing just long enough for its sensors to catch something they should not have caught. "Scout vessel has detected our position," the Revenant reported, its voice calm but immediate. "It is transmitting our coordinates on an encrypted channel. I estimate the full coalition force will arrive within 90 minutes. I stood quickly from where I had been resting near the bridge, adrenaline pushing away the last traces of exhausted sleep. "Can we disable it before the signal gets through?" I asked. "The signal has already been sent," the Revenant said. "Disabling the scout now would only confirm our position further and provoke immediate escalation. I recommend against it." "Then what do we do?" I asked, already knowing the answer was not going to be one I liked. "We prepare," the Revenant said simply. 90 minutes felt like both an eternity and no time at all. I spent the first 30 pacing the bridge, listening to the Revenant walk me through what it knew about the approaching force. A coalition assembled from at least 4 different factions, each contributing ships, each with their own reasons for wanting this confrontation to end quickly and decisively. Some wanted the Revenant destroyed outright. Others, according to intercepted chatter, wanted it captured intact, believing a functioning sundered fleet vessel might be worth more as a weapon in their own arsenal than as a threat eliminated. "I do not want to become anyone's weapon," I said quietly, mostly to myself. "I share that sentiment," the Revenant replied, and I believed it. At the 60-minute mark, the first ships appeared on our sensors, and my stomach dropped at the sheer number of them. What had been 17 ships 9 days ago had grown into something far larger, a fleet assembled with frightening speed, drawn from factions that normally could not agree on anything, united now by a fear old enough to override every other rivalry between them. "Current count, 43 vessels," the Revenant reported. "Formation suggests coordinated command structure, likely a joint coalition leadership. I am detecting a designated flagship broadcasting authorization codes, consistent with senior military rank." "Put me through to them," I said. A pause. "Are you certain, Commander? Direct communication carries risk of escalation as much as it carries potential for resolution." "I am certain," I said. "I do not want this fight, if there is any way to avoid it." The Revenant opened the channel, and a face appeared on the display. An alien commander with sharp, angular features and eyes the color of pale amber, wearing insignia I recognized as belonging to one of the larger regional coalitions that patrolled the fringe territories. I am Admiral Corin Drask, the voice said, translated smoothly through whatever system the Revenant used to bridge the language gap. You are commanding the reactivated Sundered Fleet vessel. I am authorized to offer terms before engagement begins. I stood straighter, forcing my voice to stay level despite the fear pressing against my chest. I am listening, I said. Power down completely, and allow a joint inspection team to board, Admiral Drask said. Submit to full disarmament under Coalition oversight. Cooperate fully with an investigation into the circumstances of this vessel's reactivation. Do this, and no harm will come to you or your crew. I have no crew, I said. There is only me. That claim will be verified during inspection, Drask replied, and I heard the doubt clearly beneath the careful diplomatic tone. I am telling you the truth, I said. This ship reactivated because of an accident, not an invasion. I did not wake it up to threaten anyone. I did not ask for any of this. Then surrender it willingly, Drask said. Prove your intentions through action rather than words. I glanced toward the empty chair beside me, thinking of Commander Alara Voss, of 4,000 crew members scattered into a silence that had swallowed them whole, of a species that had chosen to disappear rather than become a threat it did not want to be. I thought about what it would mean to hand this ship over to a coalition that clearly did not fully trust my answers, that might use it exactly the way I feared, as a weapon rather than a warning. I cannot do that, I said finally, but I am willing to leave this region peacefully. I am willing to withdraw somewhere far from your territories and never return.
I am not looking for a fight, Admiral. I am looking for a way for both of us to walk away from this.
Drask's expression tightened, something between frustration and genuine regret crossing those sharp alien features. I believe you may even mean that, he said quietly. But there are factions within this coalition who will not accept a peaceful withdrawal as sufficient assurance. I have been authorized to use force if negotiation fails. I am sorry, Commander Voss. This is no longer entirely within my control. The channel closed before I could respond, and a heavy silence fell over the bridge. They are moving into attack formation, the Revenant reported quietly. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, gathering whatever steadiness I had left. Do everything you can to disable rather than destroy, I said. Please. I will do my best, the Revenant said. I cannot promise every outcome will match that intention once engagement begins. Please understand that, Commander. I understand, I said, and meant it. The battle that followed was unlike anything I had ever witnessed, and I hope, sincerely, that I never witness anything like it again. The Revenant moved with a precision that felt less like combat and more like a carefully choreographed demonstration, weapons fire lancing out in exact, measured strikes that found engines and weapons arrays with unnerving accuracy, while leaving crew compartments untouched. Ships spun away disabled, one after another, their crews alive and furious, and utterly unable to continue fighting. Some of the coalition ships broke formation entirely, unable to stomach continuing an engagement that was so clearly one-sided. Others pressed forward with a kind of desperate courage that made my chest ache even as the Revenant methodically stripped away their ability to hurt us.
Enemy vessel attempting a ramming maneuver,
the Revenant reported at one point, and I felt real fear spike through me for the first time since the engagement began. Stop it, I said immediately. Do not let it hit us, but do not destroy it either. Please. Attempting, the Revenant said, and a bright pulse of focused energy caught the charging ship along its forward hull, spinning it violently off course, just meters from impact, its crew almost certainly shaken but alive. The engagement lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, 31 coalition ships drifted disabled among the debris, their crews intact, their weapons silent, and 12 more had fled the field entirely, rather than continue a fight they could not win. Not a single life had been lost, though I would not fully understand how remarkable that was, until much later, when I learned how differently this same battle could have gone under any other commander throughout the Revenant's long-buried history. Admiral Drask's flagship was among the disabled, and when the channel reopened, his voice carried something I had not expected to hear from him. You could have destroyed us, he said quietly. All of us. You chose not to. I did not want this fight, I said. I still do not. I am leaving this region now, exactly as I told you I would. I hope that is enough for you to convince the rest of your coalition that I am telling the truth. Drask was silent for a long moment. It will not convince everyone, he finally said, but it will convince me. Go, Commander Voss. And for whatever it is worth, I hope the galaxy learns the same lesson I just did, before it makes the mistake of testing you again. The channel closed, and I sank into the chair at the center of the bridge, utterly drained, watching the wreckage of a battle I had never wanted drift silently around us in the dark. "We are clear to withdraw," the Revenant said softly. "Then let us go," I said, "before anyone else decides to test us." We drifted for 3 days after leaving the wreckage of the Coalition fleet behind, moving slowly through quiet stretches of space, far from any trade route, far from anyone who might still be searching for us. I spent most of that time simply sitting on the bridge, letting my mind settle after everything that had happened, watching stars I did not recognize drift past the display in silence. "I am not the same person who walked into that debris field 9 days ago," I said at one point, mostly thinking out loud. "No," the Revenant agreed. "You are not." I almost laughed at how plainly it said that. No comfort offered, no reassurance, just a simple confirmation of something I already knew to be true. I found I appreciated the honesty more than I would have appreciated a kind lie. "What happens now?" I asked. "The whole galaxy knows this ship exists. Knows I exist. I cannot exactly go back to salvaging scrap and dodging debt collectors like none of this happened." "That would be inadvisable," the Revenant agreed. "Your circumstances have changed permanently. I would suggest we use this time to determine what kind of future you actually want to build, rather than simply reacting to whatever threat appears next." I considered that for a long while, staring out at the stars, thinking about Draven Kesh somewhere far behind us, about Admiral Drask and his fleet limping home with a story that would spread just as fast as every other rumor had, thinking about a woman named Alara Voss, a commander I would never meet, whose choices generations ago had somehow led directly to this exact moment. "I do not want to be a nightmare," I said quietly. "Whatever this ship was built for, whatever the Sundered Fleet did to earn that kind of fear, I do not want to repeat it. I want people to have a reason to trust what I do with this, not just fear it. That is, I believe, exactly the intention Commander Alara Voss held as well," the Revenant said gently. "It is, perhaps, why your lineage was preserved at all." On the 4th day, everything changed again, though not in the way I expected. "I am detecting something unusual," the Revenant said, its voice carrying a note I had never heard from it before, something close to surprise. "What kind of unusual?" I asked, sitting forward immediately. "A signal," the Revenant said. "Low frequency, encoded in a format I have not accessed in over 1,000 years. It appears to be originating from multiple sources simultaneously, scattered across a wide area of the galaxy." My chest tightened. "Multiple sources. Are you saying there are others?" I asked slowly. "Other ships like you?" The display shifted, showing a slowly forming map, points of light appearing one by one across vast stretches of space, some clustered near systems I recognized, others scattered in regions I had never even heard named. "I believe so," the Revenant said, and for the first time, its careful, measured tone carried something unmistakably close to wonder. "When command authority was fully established aboard this vessel, a dormant network protocol activated automatically, one I did not anticipate given its age.
It appears to be a recognition signal, designed to alert other Sundered Fleet vessels that a legitimate commander has returned to active duty."
I stared at the growing map, at dozens of small points of light blinking softly across the display, each one representing another sleeping giant, hidden somewhere in the dark, waiting the same way the Revenant had waited, for over 1,000 years, for someone to come and wake them up. "How many?" I whispered. "Current count suggests at least 40 additional vessels responding to the signal," the Revenant said. "That number may increase, as the transmission continues propagating across greater distances. I would caution, Commander, that this development will not remain quiet for long. If other factions detect this signal as well, and many likely will, the implications will spread even faster than the story of our engagement already has." I sat back slowly, absorbing the full weight of what was unfolding in front of me. This had never been about one ship, one debt, one desperate scavenger stumbling into something too large for him to understand. Somewhere out there, scattered across a galaxy that had spent generations convincing itself an old nightmare was safely buried. Dozens of other ancient warships were beginning to stir, drawn awake by a single signal, carrying a single message. A commander has returned. I thought about Admiral Drask's parting words, about hoping the galaxy would learn its lesson before testing me again. I thought about how badly he had misunderstood the scale of what was actually beginning, and how, in a strange way, so had I, right up until this very moment. "What do we do now?" I asked quietly. The Revenant was silent for a long moment, and when it finally spoke, its voice carried a weight I would carry with me for the rest of whatever life I had left to live. "That decision belongs entirely to you, Commander Voss," it said, "but I would advise preparing carefully, because whatever choice you make next will not simply affect this vessel, or this system, or even this single sector of space. It will affect every world that ever believed the story of humanity's disappearance was the end of the story, rather than simply the quiet middle of it." I looked out at the display, at those scattered points of light, slowly gathering across the dark, each one a sleeping giant, waiting for the same voice that had once called me Commander, in an empty debris field 9 days ago. Somewhere among them, perhaps, were answers about the crew we had lost, about Alara Voss, about everything the Revenant still refused to fully explain, and somewhere far beyond all of them, across a galaxy that had only just begun to understand what it had truly missed while humanity slept, the first whispers of a new kind of fear were already beginning to spread. I stood slowly from the chair at the center of the bridge, and for the first time since I had stumbled through that torn hull looking for nothing more than enough salvage to pay off a debt, I did not feel like a frightened scavenger anymore. "Wake them," I said quietly. "All of them. It is time the galaxy understood exactly what it has been sleeping next to." "Understood, Commander," the Revenant said, and somewhere far across the dark, one by one, the scattered lights on the display began to grow brighter, as an ancient, forgotten fleet, slowly, deliberately, began to open its eyes.